Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting of Tuesday, February the 18th. I would like to begin this afternoon's meeting by recognizing and acknowledging that we are holding this meeting and the district itself is located on the territorial lands of both the Sooke and the Sianu nations. Council would like to now turn your attention to today's agenda and look for a motion that the agenda for February 18th special meeting of council to be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Beddoes. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And just a reminder to council that I will be following Robert's rules as well as council procedural bylaw in that every motion must be put forward, moved and seconded before we are to speak or ask questions about it. And to members of the public that are gathered here with us today, we do have an opportunity for public questions and comments. Item 7, following the report of the Chief Administrative Officer. So that's the one opportunity available at the start of today's meeting. All members of public are encouraged to speak. Please just give us your name and we will put up to 2 minutes on the timer for you. Okay, moving on to adoption of meeting minutes. We have the special council meeting of January 27th and the regular council meeting of January 27th as well, both to be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 is our delegation section. That's next. So today we are going to welcome and receive a presentation from the 606 Water Group. We have a presentation by Heather Phillips. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we have 5 minutes reserved for you today as well. Thank you.
Am I on? Right. Well, thank you for this opportunity to say thank you for how we've spent grant money. We bought the canopy of the tables and the chairs. Brochures are provided by the CRD. We also print material that's available online. Scouts from the Jamboree came to the Whiffenspit on this day because it was too windy for them to go whale watching. We shared our information with them and they helped pick up our papers when the wind blew them away. 2024 was our second year at the fair, and here you see the side panels for the canopy. We thought they would stop the wind, but instead they act like sails. They do keep the sun off and they provide a background. So we scrounged the red display board secondhand. The flag banner was designed by Kate and Bonnie. The big green box holds our Enviroscape model. That was a major purchase. There were 2 sets of courier fees and customs duties to pay on top of the American dollars converted to Canadian. We're very happy with it. Here it is at the Sooke Children's Garden Club. Minor expenses that go with this activity are jello powder, acting as chemicals, coffee grounds to take the place of loose soil, and chocolate sprinkles pretending to be animal poo. Now, there we go. Another major purchase was this Sooke watershed model. It was created by Ty Lindenthaler of Linden Tree Designs out of Cicinos. We look forward to sharing this at future events, and we have printed maps that we use with it. On September 21st, we set up Water Day at the Sooke Library. It was a very busy day in Sooke, so we didn't see as many people as we expected. And this year, we'll be at the library again for Water Week in April. This is from Ken Nentwig's display at the library. Ken is one of our partners in educating people. He works in the rainwater harvesting field, but is generous with his time and experience. Harvesting systems designed for our local conditions are something we want to promote. In 2025, we're concentrating on events like Seedy Saturday, Earth Day, and the Saturday Market. That's the end of our presentation. Grants help cover our printing costs, so I'd like to show you some of the printed materials we have created to use with our programs. This is a bus stop poster. We have 4 of them designed by Bonnie, and they go up in the bus stops from time to time, the bus stop shelters that District of Sooke covers. Can you show us a map? This is one of the maps that goes with Lyndon Towler Designs, and it's marked right now with all the creeks, but you can rub that off and put mountains on. This one doesn't show the Old Wolf fire area, the Old Man Lake fire area, but one of our maps, we marked the fire area on for September 21st. Thank you. See, a recent thing we've produced is this brochure to go up to realtors. So on rural living with wells and septic fields. And bonus, Bonnie got some bookmarks printed along with the brochure. We also have business cards, and you all can have one each. Another thing that's really impressive when people stop at our display, we have the drought charts for the province from 2015. And the, this is 2015. CRD took fright in 2015 because there was such a severe drought. They started doing planning for drought. That was 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 19, 20, you can take a deep breath. 2020, not so bad. 2023, oh my goodness. 2024, the northeast corner of BC has not recovered. It's been in drought almost 2 years. Likewise, Arizona and the Midwest. And this is 2024. So we print these and we apply the covers for them. And we have the laminated paper that goes to explain the drought levels. We also feature District of Sooke. This is a CRD map, but we had printed a piece and laminated. This is the area right around the municipal hall showing the water drainage in the area. This is a very early 2004 study. We took material from that, also available Ministry of Environment. This is exaggerated, right? The vertical is 12 times the horizontal. But given that, this is Muir Creek, Broom Hill, going over to Sellers Drive, and it shows on top of the bedrock aquifer, it shows the gravel aquifers. So we have this material as part of our education, and thank you to the District for supporting our program by providing money for this printing. That's it.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Phillips, and to everyone involved with your water group for all the work and awareness that you're raising around the community. Thought maybe with the amount of small libraries, maybe that would be a good home to place some bookmarks or some related water material in those. Just a thought, because if you're reading, the bookmark goes hand in hand, and that might help. Councillor St. Pierre?
Just a couple of thoughts. One is, I'm assuming you're doing something with rain gardens. Do you help people with how they might use rain gardens to help basically refill the?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
Rain gardens.
Rain gardens.
Do you talk about rain gardens or have any information about rain gardens for the public?
Yes, we do. The CRD provides brochures.
Perfect.
And we spread them all out and attract people over and say, you want to talk about this, want to talk about that, what are you interested in? We hand them the brochures,
Perfect.
Tell them where there are examples in the area, including in front of the municipal hall.
Perfect. And I was curious, I know that trees have a huge impact on hydrology. You can actually restore hydrology with enough trees.
I have my hearing aids in, they're new, but I can't tell what you're saying.
Trees can actually restore a hydrology of an area that was previously desertified. Do you have information for people about the importance of trees to hydrology?
Chris Moss is one of our members, and he has written a series called The Rain Gauge, and it's on our website, and it's also published by Transition Sooke piece by piece. And his second to last one was about how forests evapotranspirate. What's the word? there's a biologist over there. How forests make clouds
Perfect.
and how they also, with their pollen and such, helps them make the clouds. Yeah, we are generalists and we have some specialists. As you can see, we have a really good graphic designer. We have a geologist and a biologist, PhDs, sitting in the back there. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much. We're in good hands.
Councillor Bateman, then Beddoes.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation. Public money exceptionally well spent. Well done. Just clarify for me, did that latest grant was community grant or the local government climate action?
We had 3 grants, 2 community grants and 1 climate action. And the printing costs, the last community grant was mostly for printing costs.
Okay, so are you eligible for another community grant?
We are, but we'd like to spend it wisely. So we have to figure out if we really need it this year.
Right, okay. March 15th is your deadline.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. I especially love that demonstration for the kids, because that's where we need to target a lot of our concerns for the future, because it's their future. And I really liked what you did with that display. I mean, you know, it's like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, that was exceptional. And I'm very impressed with how you're engaging the public and very serious issues we all face. And you're bringing some light to it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Do you mind just turning off the microphone? Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is our report of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just, excuse me, highlight a couple things in here, and then I'm happy to answer any questions council may have. So for events, a couple events coming up would be the coldest night of the year, February 22nd. I believe staff and the community has passionately supported this event over the years. So looking forward to seeing people out this Saturday. Heading over into March would be Work BC's Sooke Job Fair at Edward Milne Community School from 1 to 5. For the District of Sooke in our positions, right now we have 3 vacancies that we are actively trying to recruit for. Parks laborer, we always recruit for that. The council and the community are going to be able to hear in a budget presentation a bit more about parks and how we staff and serve the community's needs and provide the services that the community is expecting in the parks. And one of that is through Parks Auxiliaries. So more to come on that. That's an annual process for us. As well, the Deputy Director of Corporate Services, we have just extended that competition. I believe it just closed again. So we're currently screening for that position. That position will be much more important, or it's always important, but even more so now when council will be creating a couple new committees and a board of variance, et cetera. So that position is a key support for those committees. And as well, the chief building official, we've been trying to recruit this one for years now. We're not unique in Sooke to this position being vacant or being difficult to fill. However, we're still committed to doing that. We have auxiliary and contracted help to fill that gap in the meantime. So more information to come on that. But if anyone's out there is listening and wants to work in one of your fastest growing munis in BC, submit your resume. Lots of news and events. I'm not going to kind of highlight all of those. I'm happy to answer any question to them. As Councillor Bateman just alluded to, our community grants intake is currently open and will be closing in a few weeks here. So encouraging everyone to submit your application in. Public participation budget will be the next thing coming up. March 10th will be the next iteration of a budget and some presentations, department presentations to council on trying to provide the community and council some options on how to reduce the overall tax increase, and then just providing awareness on the impacts of that. And if it comes from draining reserve funds, short-term pain, long-term gain kind of situation. Yeah, project updates, a couple things. Accessible playground equipment was installed at Woodland Creek, which is great. Parks are always trying to tackle some of those parks maintenance projects every year. So glad to see that one completed. Little River groundbreaking, that project has been talked about since before I started working at the district 7+ years ago now. So very excited for that groundbreaking to happen last week. It was a great event and looking forward to that project coming to fruition. And the last one would be Ravens Ridge. So that project's been ongoing for a couple years now. The final phase of it is underway, and looking forward for that great community asset to be completed. I will leave that there and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so the motion to put forward is that council receive the report of the Chief Administrative Officer for information, moved by St. Pierre and seconded by Beddoes. And questions? Go ahead.
So I'm curious about, yeah, thank you for the report as ever. Very informative. I'm curious about the Ministry of Transportation and Transit presentation that was scheduled for January 29th and then was canceled. Can you give us an update on when that might be rescheduled?
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman, to date, I've heard nothing about a reschedule of a date. I don't believe staff, we briefly touched base on that last week. We haven't heard of any new intake dates. I believe the school district has reached out and is trying to do a school district to district council meeting again, where maybe further information might be shared, but I don't believe a date has been picked.
Okay, we look forward to that. Also, I note that the tender process for the water main upgrade, Church Road to Phillips, closed on December 10th. So hopefully some bids were received and that's project's going ahead. So I'm just curious to know through you to maybe Mr. Carter, through the CAO to Mr. Carter, what the progress is. I just begin a prelude. I looked online, Vibrant Victoria had a post stating, could Sooke be headed for another round of traffic Armageddon? So on that note, give us an update on this water main project, please.
Yeah, thank you through your worship to Councillor Bateman. So the CRD hasn't provided us with any details on the tender award, but as soon as they decide on an award for the project and the successful proponent, they will be providing us with an update. Their communications department is working with Ms. Moog. So we will get some information, I'm hoping in the short term here, regarding who's awarded the project and what their timeline for construction will be, and we'll update council accordingly.
Okay, and just back to that traffic Armageddon piece, because there's some wounds in the community from last summer, of course, and those are healing. And can we anticipate significant delays and over what potential time period?
There will be some delays for sure. That'll be kind of due course for any of the projects, especially for ones on Highway 14. But from my understanding, there won't be permitted daytime closures, so traffic should be flowing in both directions. There may be intermittent ones for specific segments of the work, but the ministry is following suit with their own rules that they apply to us. So hopefully there'll be nothing too substantial in terms of traffic delays.
Good to hear. Thank you.
And just for clarity for members of the public here, this is a Capital Regional District project where they're working directly with the province. As a resident, you may have received correspondence to that occurring, in which case some have asked that the work be completed in the evening, much like our wastewater work has been done in the evening. The district did not get permission to do that during the day. We've been following and demonstrating how that work can be safely done overnight. And this is occurring westward towards our wastewater plant. All that work has been done at night. We've asked for the same consideration of that. So it's not district led. This is a CRD initiative, as water comes from the CRD, and they're working directly with the Ministry of Transportation. But due to the impacts on the community, we have requested it be considered in the evening or done in the evening, just as our work needed to be done in the evening. So more on that to come. Thank you for raising that. Anything else from members of council? Just to note, the coldest night of the year gathering starts about 4:30. So we'll see you there on 4:30 Saturday. Well, you'll be on vacation. That's okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor, please. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7. This is for public question and comment. For anyone joining us today in chambers, please come forward and introduce yourself. We do not require your address, but let us know which item you're here to talk about. Thank you.
Good day. I took that train ride in November and it was -44 in Saskatoon last week, so just soon be here. Terrence Martin. Before the clock starts, in the interest of time, I represent several groups, and in the interest of efficiency and time, I ask for an extra minute here. So instead of having multiple come forwards, we could do it all in 3 minutes. Is that possible? An additional minute? Sure. Thanks very much. Our collective interest is in land outside of Sooke, and my comments span a lot of things on the agenda that come to ground on roads. Access to our property is from an intermunicipal transecting road that begins in Sooke, named Glens Lake Road, and terminates at our property on Ragan Mountain in the Malahat OCP area. The official CRD Parks Plan has drawn a acquisition target circle on our property. Some of you will recall that I appeared at a previous meeting in regards to a bylaw complaint about a gate on the road, which is a public highway. That subsequently didn't go anywhere. You may also recall our lobby for access to lands beyond the district boundary that resulted in policy and action items in the OCP around access to lands beyond Sooke. That went nowhere as well, and the language has now been struck out of this draft OCP. You'll recall the Old Man Lake wildfire. The road to our property is not only ground access for fire protection to the millions of dollars of merchantable timber on our property, but beyond it is access to the area of the Old Man Lake wildfire. Fires do not just happen in the summer, and if that fire had ignited in the strong northeasterlies that we see around here in the winter, it would have blown uncontrollably right into Sooke. You may have heard about the CRD plan to buy another 33 million plus of former forestry lands from Kapur for water supply and use the alternative approval process to circumvent the public approvals. That area is not even in the watershed, and it's another dodge by the CRD to buy more land for CRD parks like they did with the Sooke Hills Park Reserve that was brought in as water supply area and then turned over to parks because parks would never get the budget approval. You'll recall our lobby brought the massive CRD parks expansion accessible from Harborview Road to a halt on zoning. Harborview Road is the other historical access to Ragan Mountain. And CRD Parks already occupies around 30% of Sooke's taxable land base without paying anything. CRD parkland acquisitions are a significant line item on our Sooke tax bills. Why do we have to pay into that in addition to having our backcountry access cut off and the tax base eroded when CRD parks are a regional service that we can opt out of paying into? That would give everyone an immediate tax break. My ask is that you please put the access language that we invested so much time and effort into back into the OCP and direct staff to prepare a report detailing the impact of park dedications on Sooke's tax revenue. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Our next speaker today, please.
Ellen Lures. I'd like to speak to a couple of things. First, 9.9.1 and 10, whatever it is, bylaws, provincial housing. I have some questions that haven't been answered yet. First of all, for the 4 lots, I never did an answer. What does that 4 lot question mean? Does it mean a subdivision? Does it mean they're strata or a condominium act? We haven't had those answers. And how does it work with sewer and water? And is it economically viable for anybody to build? Because it's something like $600,000 per lot these days just to build. Those are questions that need to be asked from the province as well. And why was it that Urban Systems that made the presentation for the Bill 44? I understand that Matthew Paulo was involved with Urban Systems, and also he transitioned to a provincial role, becoming executive director of the Housing Targets branch with the Ministry of Housing. In this capacity, oversees the implementation of housing targets across British Columbia, working closely with various stakeholders. So he was a part of our OCP and a part of Urban Systems. And I did send to the council about the UDI making a presentation to EB, actually basically spelling out how Bill 44 should look, and that if the province chose not to do it, that they should be punished. And we still have a membership with them. And I would say that if you were to accept Bill 44, as it was, there has to be conditions on there, that Sooke Road is accessible to the density required by the bylaw. If not, it doesn't happen. Also, what about the water? I think I also sent to you that there's been some discussion that people have reduced water pressure, and we know what happened in California. And you have in here a 9.1, the fire protection safety, fire smart. So what's our resistance? What's our water pressure like? Was that something else that was looked at before in regard to this Bill 44? I did send an email to the council. I did send an email to the info@sooke.ca, and I got a response back, talk to the CRD, water, but it's not about that. It's about, how about the density? How does the density allow us to be safe with water? And also.
We are at 3 minutes, Ms. Lewis.
Is it 3 minutes? Oh,
Yes.
Okay, I can come back. Okay, thank you.
Do I have other speakers in the gallery today?
John Broman, 2105 Furwood. I'm a landlord there. We own the property. Property's been in our family for 65 years. We're supplying affordable housing. It's been rental housing, that property, that for over 65 years. I'd like to continue to build on the property, put more houses on it. What form, I don't know. I agree with item 10. Section 1, I think, is in it, about the small scale. I like the language. There's some things in here that I just don't really go in favor of. I've got an R3 zoning on the property. I put it on there about 10 years ago, and for future needs. And I see we're coming under a restricted zone. I've got no idea what that's going to entertain, a restriction. I don't like the word restriction on our property. It seems like it's going to be a lot more headaches and a lot more taxes. My taxes have been going up by horrendous. You're talking about another maybe 16%. A few years ago, when I applied for subdivision and that, we went over 100% on the taxes. I thought I'd let it go because the short term, I was hoping to finish off with some subdivision, of creating a couple more lots. That hasn't really happened. But my tax bill has gone up, just skyrocketing. Basically, I'm getting taxed on potential. And that's, my taxes with the government went up well over 100%. And so as we keep going here, I cannot carry on because I'm stuck with a 2.5 rent increase every year. And I'm stuck with that, which I've been doing, but I'm losing, eventually losing. The taxes keep going up. I can't up my rent. We're stuck. So we've always, I'm in favor of affordable housing. I'm in favor of the government's 4 houses on one. I think it's a great deal. But I feel, Sooke, what we need to do is have more of a townhouse meeting, get more information on what's in Bill 44. Do you guys know Bill 44 word for word? I don't think you do. We're in a gray area there, and I haven't seen it. Sooke hasn't been advertising where I can go pick up.
Thank you, Mr. Broman. That was 3 minutes as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers today?
Hello, James Holloway. Also like to speak to item 10, the changes to our zoning bylaw that are being pushed down by higher levels of government. At least that's my assumption, that we don't necessarily appreciate that. Thanks to the council and the staff for all their hard work on the issue. And thanks to whoever organizes the agenda on the website. Really handy, really accessible. One of the reasons I chose to live in Sooke is the official community plan, which I think is a very strong vision and is aligned with the regional growth strategy. A key element of that is, having the character of a small oceanside town and in a beautiful natural setting. And I think the current zoning laws generally support that vision and try to protect it. I'm concerned by higher levels of government mandating and directing local governments to do things that may not be aligned with local constituent desires and needs. And I think the previous speaker also sort of referred to that it would be much more aligned with our desires to have local control and influence and understanding about how these plans do or don't fit with where we think Sooke should be and where we need to be in the future. So my question is, I'm wondering if council does feel the same, that we feel a little bit put upon to have these changes dictated to us rather than make them of our own accord. If we do feel that way, what strategies are available to us to try to push back and control our own destiny? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. We'll address that when the item comes forward. Thank you very much. Do I have any other speakers in the audience today? Call for a second time.
Ellen Lewis, thank you. So another couple of questions are affordable housing. If this is going to be affordable housing, how can it be? Because it's $600,000 per lot. The other question is this going to be, it's really important to know, these houses being built as rental, or are they going to be fee simple lots? We've never had an answer to that. And how can you pass a bylaw if you don't know? So you build four buildings on a lot. Is it fee simple? Is it a condo? Is it under the Condominium Act? Is it a strata? If we don't have those answers, how are we supposed to go forward with this? And I think we need to ask those questions. I don't know if they've been asked, but I sure would like to know the answers. I'm sure council would too. What are we building here? What is expected of us? And also I did send to you that, I think I said that, about urban development meeting with EB in 2022. And I think I sent that all to you and saying that this is what the law should be, and to punish the municipalities if they don't deal with it. So I sure hope that there's some action from this council on that. And if you do have to go forward with this, you need to put in some caveats in there and say, hey, Sooke Road has to be, if you have to show us that it's not going to increase, the density isn't going to be a problem in Sooke Road, which it is. We know that. And there's too much to talk about. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Loers. Do I have any other speakers in the gallery today? For second and third final time? Okay, thank you very much to those of you that did speak earlier. Just a few general comments back for some that are related to particular items, but we've taken note and we'll look to address those, or our staff will, as those presentations come forward. To the question regarding, or the commentary regarding to our OCP, council has recently directed staff to resume that process. So there will be a series of more engagement and so forth over the coming months. So just stay tuned for those, and perhaps that'll be a way to bring some concerns forward, or as the draft comes forward, we certainly took note there about what we could do, but take that into consideration there. In terms of the UDI, the membership, the resolution, as I understand it from council, was that council would receive a delegation from the UDI and then make a decision on whether or not to renew that membership. So that membership expires early summer, I believe. And our staff are reaching to schedule that presentation. So that is where we stand on that. There's been no commitment to renew the membership going forward unless council chooses to. In the meantime, the Victoria UDI is different than the Vancouver one, but ultimately they may share a similar mandate from either. And that is where I'll leave it until we get into the particular items on tonight's agenda. But the comments about the small scale multi-unit housing, there was a series of dialogue and engagement held last year, as well as particular outreach to the local builders association. So I know that our staff had done that in terms of reaching out to the public. It ultimately led to council not approving the bylaw. However, the minister has since indicated that we have to adopt this, and that is why that item is in front of us today. Lastly, there was a comment about our former staff member, not aware that he was ever involved with urban systems, to our knowledge, worked with other local governments, perhaps in Alberta before coming to the district of Sooke. He's moved from Alberta and now got scooped by the province. I'm not aware that he had worked with urban system. So I will move on into our reports, and we have our consent agenda. So on this agenda would be that the following items on the consent agenda be adopted by consent. 8.2 correspondence and 8.3 is a mayoral proclamation for Heritage Week. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Beddoes. Does council wish to extract anything? Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'd like to pull number 30N, Highway 14, Daniel Sy.
Okay, 30N will come to the next regular meeting. Anything else will be received and filed. So all those in favor? Sorry, it's already been moved and seconded. Okay, never mind. All those in favor? Yes. Any opposed? None opposed. That's unanimous. Thank you. Now we're into our reports under item 9. The first one is 9.1, Community Resilience Investment Program 2025-6, Fire Smart Community Funding and Sports. Over to staff.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm seeking council resolution for Fire Smart Grant effective 2025-2026. This will be a 2-year grant covering April 1st of this year to April 1st of 2027. A little bit of what the program's about. So the Fire Smart program is a wildfire prevention program created by Partners in Protection. It's currently administered by Interagency Forest Fire Center. Currently through UMBC, each district is given a grant. We're eligible for a grant based on their wildfire risk rating. Sooke is currently the highest rating you can get. And this grant follows recommendations laid out by the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan, which we did in late 2022 by Blackwell Associates. So CWRP is a 5-year plan that coordinators like myself in partnership with agencies such as ESS, Parks, Bylaw, et cetera, can guide their yearly projects. That's what that is. Some of what we did on the 2023 grant, which we're currently on until April this year. Conducted 17 residential home assessments, 9 critical infrastructure assessments, 2 parks assessments. We did broom removal program and residential chipping days. Began integration of the BC Fire Smart Education program into Sooke's grade schools, specifically starting with Poirier grade 5 class, and the feedback was awesome. The kids really liked it. So I'd like to move forward with that as the years go on. And John Muir is interested as well for the months to follow. We filmed an educational video with site partners showcasing Sooke along with neighboring districts, which was a huge win for Sooke's Fire Smart program because it was recognized by Fire Smart Canada as us having a very strong partnership with our neighboring districts. Other things we did: set up information booths at various fairs and markets. You might have seen me there. Hosted a wildfire resiliency event led by Al Westhaver, which was here in council chambers. And we acquired the mascot and model house. Finally, we assisted Sooke Nation in finalizing their CWRP, which was signed off by myself and the deputy chief last week. So where do we want to go from here? On the next grant, we'll be conducting the launch of the plant program, which will be at Artisans Gardens, April 27th. Where we'll be showcasing fire resilient plants for the residents to learn about. I'll have a booth there with the emergency program manager where we discussed emergency preparedness and wildfire resiliency as well. We're looking at doing some critical infrastructure upgrades. I've identified district office, fire hall 1 and fire hall 2. So I've done all the pre-assessments for that, which is attached. You'll see it attached to that grant. It's about 150 pages. There's a lot of photos, but I didn't want to leave anything to the imagination. We'll be continuing with our rebate program, which will allow $1,000 per resident, which is half of what you spend. Forecasting about 25. Who knows? As fires happen, that number goes up. If they don't happen, it could go down. But we had quite a few last year, so it can only go up from there as fires get worse. Debris removal, there's no limitations on that. We're going to be forecasting that will go on through the next few years. We're going to dial in a bit of a program on that and have something like a mail drop off or letting everyone know what's going to happen. And then we'll have one site set on doing chipping maybe every couple months or so. That's still in the works. Public education events will continue in conjunction with the emergency program manager and ESS. We're looking at implementing wildfire DPAs for high risk wildfire areas. So that's an idea that myself and Chief came up with, also in the incipient phase of that. Green space mitigation, I've identified Deer Leap Park and Ravens Ridge as potential candidates because those were identified in the CWRP as some of the highest risk parks, both for different reasons. So I want to do some cleanup there. And then there'll be a lot of collaboration with Sooke Nation as they're going to be moving into their own Fire Smart program. We're going to be partnering and have a lot of concurrent projects we'll be working together on, I'm sure. Yeah, so this is a allocation-based grant, unlike the previous years, which was application-based. So we're not handcuffed to any specific checklist item. It's a bit more fluid. It'll be really good to kind of jump around as priorities change or interest moves around, stuff like that. And yeah, that summary, like fires are here to stay and they're getting worse. I think this Fire Smart program is really good for Sooke and interest is increasing. The LA fires, my phone was off the hook for a few days. We saw the Old Man Lake fire last year. That was a bit of an eye-opening surprise. And yeah, so focusing on resiliency at the residential level and going from there is really important. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to have the motion put on the floor, then we can ask questions. That is that council endorse a funding application to UBCM's Community Resilience Investment CRI Program 2025 to 26 Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports Fund in the amount of 400,000 for a period of 2 years, and that council authorize staff to provide overall grant management in order to receive this funding. It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and moved by Bateman. So I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre first, if you have any questions or would like to speak on the motion.
This is a question. I'll speak to the motion, but a quick question. If someone amongst anyone who's listening wants to contact you immediately, because they might, how do they go about doing this most easily?
If you email either myself, which can be found on the Fire Smart portal of the Sooke Fire page, or you can just contact Fire Department front desk. And go through our admin staff and she can link me up that way and I can get you booked in. Right now, it's pretty quiet. So if anyone wants a home assessment, it's a great time.
Thank you so much. I don't think I'm going to say very much about the grant itself. I think honestly, we know that we need as much help as we can get in this area. I'm pleased that we're looking for dollars that don't come out of our tax dollars. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Crawford, for that presentation. And I did have a look at the Community Wildfire Resilience Plan that we received last year, and you're clearly ticking off a lot of the boxes. First recommendation is to continue to fund a Fire Smart position. So that is key with this grant. I was curious about some of the other of those 41 recommendations. I saw number 17 was develop a wildfire development permit area in the OCP. Are you working with planning to ensure that happens?
I forwarded an email to planning, giving them the heads up that it was a menu item on the next grant. The good thing about that is all the work is already done for us. It was done by the head mitigation division of FireSmart. We just have to forward it on to, I guess, planning department. Once the chief's back, we're gonna have a meeting and discuss the best way to do that, but all the paperwork's already done, so. And other districts neighboring us have began to adopt it, such as Langford and I believe Central Saanich.
Okay, excellent. All right, and you did mention this, but I was tuned out a bit, the Fire Smart demonstration project, I think you said. So I think Deer Leap Park is the first. And we have been walking through there lately, and it looks like something's going on in there. Is work happening at Deer Leap?
Not currently by FireSmart. It could be another volunteer association that's been cleaning up in there.
Okay.
But specifically identified from my assessment was a lot of the dead tall standing trees and obviously like anywhere else, the broom. So we're going to make quite a plan to tackle that one. But yeah, I've heard that other community groups have been kind of just cleaning up in there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I guess finally, there was item 21, the creation of a Sooke Community Fire Smart Resiliency Committee. Does such a thing exist at this point? Or are you planning at some point?
It does. So our CWRP, or correction, our Wildfire Resiliency Committee was in the works, I think, since 2021. And it consists of all the neighboring districts. I could name them all, but it includes CRT and the electoral areas as well. And yeah, it's been a close relationship since we've all had coordinators.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate on the work that you've done so far. I've noticed a difference in this community, and I noticed a difference in people's attitudes in regards to firing. Big difference. And their wake-up call this last year with their fire over here. And by the grace of God, the wind is blowing in the correct direction. Not that any direction is good when a fire, but it could very easily go the other way. And I like the idea that our fire people, the whole system, is preparing for such an event, because if it comes, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And thank you for your work, and thank you for what you've done. And I look forward to seeing what you can do when you get this 400,000. Thanks.
Just a few comments from me, please. Can you please remind me of when the event at Artisans Garden is, where you're showcasing the Fire Smart plantings? Earth Day, is that it?
Artisan Gardens will be April 27th, 11 to 3.
Okay, thank you very much for that. One thought, just a couple of ideas, if they don't add to it, I am in full support of the work that you're doing as well as the resolution itself. Is there may be residents willing to show a before and after. So a before, if they're up for it, it may, and then when they do, I know that there's a lot involved to get a property involved, but if they're willing to showcase the afterwards, it might be helpful from an awareness perspective, just to show what that looks like, but it would depend on the residents wanting to share their land. Certainly our parks would be a good opportunity with Ravens Ridge, like the before. There's a lot of work occurring there now, but what it looks like afterwards. In terms of the chipping, so that's not just broom, but if you are able to establish that where residents could bring like yard debris, like branches and such. Okay, that would be great and very welcomed by the community. I think it's just knowing when they are and where you set up. The mascot, I think, is a fox, Ember, the fox.
Ember the Fox.
Okay, and you have that mascot.
We do have the mascot.
Okay, they're always fun. So if there's a way of encouraging Ember to be present, I think for kids or families, everyone likes a good mascot, and she's a smart and capable fox, as I understand it. Well, I think that's the unknown. Like no one reveals. No, it could be you. It could be. Just volunteered yourself, Counselor. Thank you. Another thought is Local Government Awareness Week is the 3rd week of May. I'm not sure what the theme is. Last year, we did a lot of work around showcasing our wastewater plant. If it ties in and is effective, it may be a way to showcase the Fire Smart and to really bring those messages home perhaps, and I'll leave that in your capable hands as well as our communication staff to see if that's possible or if even if it works, but it may be a good opportunity. But otherwise, there was a question around water pressure. I don't know if that relates or if you have any comment back on how that may relate to this program, or I think that's more attending, putting out fires, but.
The suppression side of, suppression is not the right word, but the sprinkler protection side of fire, it's a bit different. It's not really a fire under the fire smart umbrella. We do the sprinkler installs and we'll, like, they have a rating on them of what water pressure people can use. Some people just can't use them. That's just the reality of it. And we can go a bit further into that, but it's, yeah, it's not really under the fire smart umbrella.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time and your report and all the good work that you're doing. Did you have a follow-up?
I have just one last question, and that
Sure.
item 12 on that action list was debris piles from land clearing are identified as a fire hazard. Do we have any such debris piles currently in Sooke, and what's being done about them?
Not currently that I know of. There was one last year that we had taken care of locally, but yeah, it's, if it does come up, it's definitely something we could utilize parks and the grant to kind of remove, but it hasn't come across my desk yet.
Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, sorry to prolong this, but when these large piles, when people are clearing land, is it still allowed that they burn them and not grind them up? What's the regulation? I'm not familiar.
It depends on the piles
Okay.
and the time of year,
All right.
but generally, no, we can't. You can't burn those big slosh piles here. Maybe the
Okay.
chief can touch more on this, but generally, no. They'd have to bring a stump grinder or have them chipped out and removed.
Okay.
We can only handle the
Because I
6.
go back many years and there was times when the slash burning in BC here and the sky was, red for days and days. And then a lot of these big fires going on in properties, but I don't see it anymore. And I'm just wondering if that's strictly regulated now and they grind them up more often than not. Okay, thanks. Well, I won't go into it. Thank you.
You're good there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? None opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you for your work today.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
9.2 Parks Use Permit, Commercial Use. Over to staff, please.
Thank you through your worship to council. In accordance with council's bylaw for the community parks regulation, it's council to authorize any commercial parks use permits. This permit is in place for presented to council for consideration for the Western Educational Adventures Society for outdoor educational programming for use of the Sun River Nature Park or Nature Trail Park, as well as the Sooke Potholes Gateway area. Permit is from June 10th to September 6th, Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. And the following resolution is putting you for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter. The resolution is that council authorize a commercial parks use permit for Western Educational Adventures, Inc. for outdoor education programs at Sun River Nature Trail Park and Sooke Potholes Gateway in accordance with section 6 of the Community Park Regulation Bylaw number 101 and subject to the conditions outlined in attachment 2. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any comments, Councillor St. Pierre?
Just a quick comment. This is similar to other applications that we've had in the past, that it's really good that we use our trails and parks. It's nice to have youth using them well. And I know that staff is careful about making sure that they're protected, so gladly support it. Thank you.
Councillor Beddoes?
No, it's pretty straightforward. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I just note here that last year, this group, from what I understand, used the Sun River Park twice for two camps, and this year they have 11 scheduled. And those 2 camps last year were in late July, early August, and these camps run from June 16th through the end of August. So I guess this bylaw does give a full 3-month window for $200.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so I guess we maybe need to relook at that bylaw, because with 24 participants per camp potentially at Anyway, that's, yeah, okay.
It'll depend. I mean, these are activity camps, so the cost then goes on to the participant and the family. So we can add more, but in the end, it's families that are paying more for camps to keep their kids busy. All right,
And
Go
then
ahead.
my follow-up, there wasn't a question, but my first question would be, does our Parks Department see any impacts from the camps last year, for example?
No impacts were presented to us.
all those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next is 9.3, recognition and awareness policy. Over to staff.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Today I'm presenting the Recognition and Awareness Policy Report, which seeks council direction on formalizing a process for handling recognition requests in a structured, consistent, and efficient manner. The volume of recognition requests is increasing, particularly for lighting and decorations of Municipal Hall and the Highway 14 roundabout. Without a policy, we face operational inefficiencies and potentially financial strain. Further, a policy can help define related service levels, optimizing use of municipal resources. Specifically, a policy can establish clear criteria for evaluating such requests, improve budget management and operational efficiency by scheduling related actions in advance, provide public transparency on how recognition is granted and managed, and align with, as identified in our strategic priorities, the district's broader service level review to ensure staffing, operational capacity, and financial sustainability are considered in decision-making. For these reasons, staff are seeking council's direction on two related items. One, approval to develop a recognition and awareness policy, and two, approval of recognized events for 2025. If council approves, staff will proceed with drafting a recognition and awareness policy, incorporating today's discussion and direction. The policy will be presented for further review and final approval at a future council meeting. We are also looking to receive direction on events for the year ahead to address requests that are already coming in, such as item, just a sheer coincidence, I believe, is item 12.2 on the agenda today. So with that, thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so the motion here, okay, so here is where before we can pass a motion, we're looking to have events. So in this case, it's taking care of what is in the report. And is the question from staff to look at anything in addition to this?
Certainly, that's one option, but we're happy to take direction as council wishes to provide. So what has been included in the staff report is those events that historically we have recognized.
Okay.
Would be perhaps a foundational starting point, but certainly happy to receive direction from yourselves.
Okay, and then to our corporate officer, do you require the motion to note all of these events in the wording of the motion?
Thank you. What I might suggest is to separate these two motions.
Okay.
And first have council give staff direction on the potential of developing a policy on this matter. And then my preference would be for the second motion to indeed indicate the list of events specifically. That's my understanding of the report writer's requirement out of council today, is to know which events to undertake for this upcoming year.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So we'll start with the first one, that council directs staff to prepare a recognition and awareness policy for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Beddoes. Would you like to speak on that motion? Nope.
Overdue.
Okay, that was not in the microphone, but thank you for the support. Councillor Beddoes.
No, ditto. That's good.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the question on this part. All those in favor, please. That's carried unanimously. So on the second part here, so what we'll do here is, and that council directs staff to conduct recognition and adornment for the following events in 2025. So I'm going to list off the historical ones just so we get something. And then we can then decide if we need to amend that. So we have guiding lights across BC, February 22nd, epilepsy awareness, March 26th, National Indigenous Peoples Day of June 21st, Canada Day of July the 1st, Overdose Awareness Day of August the 31st, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, September 30th, Halloween of October 31st, Remembrance Day, November 11th, Christmas being December. So going forward, the one that we don't see on here is Pride Week. So I would like to add Pride Week. And also for council to consider, it may be a bit late, but in the going years of Black History Month, which is the month of February. And there is a date of Red Dress Day, because we have the installation outside. I just don't now know what that date is. So I'll leave it endless lead.
Flag raising is on June 3rd.
June 3rd is Pride Flag Raising Day. June, what, sorry? June the
June
3rd?
3rd in Ottawa.
Okay, we've sort of followed, I think, yeah. And Black History Month is the month of February. Red Dress Day is May the 5th. In Canada is May the 5th. And then there has been a call for the Sooke flag to be more prominently displayed in the roundabout. I don't know if that needs a date.
25th anniversary.
Yeah, but that's December 1st. 7th, December. So I don't know. I don't know when we've displayed it in between. Sorry, it's Red Dress Day, not Shirt Day. Was
Just-
there, so if that goes on what was done and what I've heard the community request in previous and past years. Just don't see Black History Month on this motion. I know it's in part, but maybe it'll capture for next year. Go ahead, Ms. Mood.
Sorry, through your worship, if I could just receive clarification to inform the policy development for events such as Black History Month, which is a month. Did council have a preference around the date range, a 7-day period within that, or for the whole month? If there's any clarification you can provide, that would help staff in drafting the policy.
I don't have a particular date or something in mind, but just given what members of in our community have endured and expressed to us, I just feel it's important to showcase that. It may tie into what is happening in schools. That might be a good connection point. Councillor St. Pierre?
I was hoping that we might also include Louis Riel Day, because that's as close as it gets to a Métis Day, and often we're not recognized.
What would that look like? Is there a particular flag?
November 16th. And yes, there is.
Okay. Sorry, that was November the 16th. Okay. All right, so shall we move this? So moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Is there anything further from members of council? The policy will actually inform this, but this is something just to have. Go ahead.
Curiosity is we have all these Earth Days and whatnot. Is there an Earth Day flag? that we
No,
want?
well, there's other
No,
events
I was just
occurring.
I was just
There-
curious.
I think there is, but I think it's used when those events pop up
No, that's
throughout
fine.
the
I'm just
community.
curious. Okay.
And we've missed Flag Day,
We did this.
so we already are flying the Canadian flag. I don't know if there's anywhere else we could fly it safely.
Higher.
Higher than it is? Need a new flagpole. It's flying, so when our firefighters do a good job on having the flags out. Yeah. Okay, so that's moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you, staff, for your work. I know this is adding to it, but let's carry on. Let us know how it goes. Okay, we're into item 10, which is our bylaw section, and this is the provincial housing legislation zoning bylaw amendments, small scale multi-unit housing. Over to staff, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
This item is presenting zoning amendment bylaw number 910, 600-104, 2024 for consideration of first, second, third reading and adoption. The zoning amendment bylaw is intended to bring the district into compliance with section 481.3 of the Local Government Act and the statutory requirements established under Bill 44 to accommodate small-scale multi-unit housing within restricted zones in accordance with provincial efforts to create more homes for people. Restricted zones are zones where the permitted residential use is restricted to single-family dwelling or duplex. As a result of the legislative changes, these zones must now permit up to 3 or 4 units subject to the lots being located within the community growth area, connected to municipal sewer and water, under 4,050 square meters in area, and located outside the agricultural land reserve. Where restricted zones do not meet the 3 to 4 unit criteria, secondary suites and small suites must be permitted. A redline version of the bylaw and table of changes has been included with the staff report showing the proposed changes. The zoning amendment bylaw was considered by council on 2 previous occasions, following the most recent on November 25th, 2024, where the motion to adopt the bylaw was defeated. The district received correspondence from the province requiring that it amend its zoning bylaw within 30 days from the receipt of the letter. This correspondence was discussed at the regular council meeting on January 27th, where council directed staff to bring the amendment bylaw forward again for consideration within the time frame specified by the province. With that, staff are recommending that council give first, second, third reading and adopt zoning amendment bylaw 910 600-104 2024. And direct staff to provide written notice to the Minister of Housing that the zoning bylaw amendment required for compliance with small scale multi-unit housing requirements have been adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is that council give first, second, and third reading of zoning amendment bylaw number 910 600-104 2024 amendments to implement small scale multi-unit housing legislation as prescribed by Bill 44. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. So on the motion, Councillor St. Pierre.
So as it stands, the province is within its rights, though it has not generally exercised those rights to basically force this legislation on us in whatever form it chooses. This is actually our final chance to basically choose how we want to implement their laws. We don't have a choice about implementing because they'll implement them for us if we don't. This actually gives us the ability to do some damage control and make sure that it actually fits our OCP and fits the wishes of our community as best possible. As such, there's really not a great deal we can do because it'll either happen this way or it will happen in another way, unknown. I do have a question for staff at some point, but I would also point out that it's been clear, first of all, we're looking at fee simple. That's fairly clear from the legislation, but we can get that confirmed with staff. So there was a question from the public, and I would make sure that's answered. I also remember that from previous reports, there hasn't been a huge uptake in other local governments. We haven't had huge amounts of pressure, and we do have a lot of lots that are already ready to go, ready to be built on. So the pressures on our road are not, from what I understand, going to be substantially changed by this. The major impact seems to be that instead of having to go through a long and tedious process of rezoning and a lot of other hassle and delays and additional costs, your average person who would like to actually create housing for their family or whatever it might be, and we've had a lot of cases like that, can do so more easily. I understand that we do not like being told what to do by the province in an area where we have jurisdiction, and that's okay, and that's right. In this particular case, we don't have a great deal of choice. And truthfully, I don't think there's a great deal of fear, and there are some benefits to be derived. So I support the motion.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for the report. Very substantial piece of work that we've seen for, I think, the 3rd time now. And it's taken me that long to get even a notably vague, still vague in my mind, but I'm not the professional here. I think as I said back in November, we've made some good strategic moves along the way here. Asking for that deferral was the right thing to do back in June. I argued in November that it was time to opt for diplomacy and coordination and collaboration with the province to get the work done that needs doing, which is to get our secondary, our connector route transportation master plan priorities continued at the accelerated rate that Mr. Carter is leading us through them. And at the same time, insists that the province get on with it in terms of highway upgrades. And as Mr. Carter reported out at the TMP update back in late October, those projects are coming. Pending confirmation, of course, this year from the Ministry Kaltassin Idlemore intersection, or Idlemore intersection, the right-hand turn lanes from Sooke River Bridge to Phillips, and the right turn lanes, Church Road and Charters. So I think we're we can push back again and just, I don't want to use the word petulant, so I won't. I don't think we need to be, we need to maybe just say, okay, we've heard you, you've delivered an ultimatum, and we are now going to adopt the small scale multi-unit provisions of Bill 44. I have a few questions. One, I need clarification again from staff that you do not anticipate a gold rush mentality from Sooke property owners who have eligible SHMU properties, i.e. they're hooked up with sewer and water. So just, I've asked that, I'll ask that again today, as I have at previous meetings.
So through the mayor, no, it's anticipated that these applications will trickle in and not all at once.
Okay, they'll trickle in. Okay, over time. And of course, this aligns with our OCP vision of a smart growth town center with density in the town center, i.e. the sewer specified zone. Also, to follow up on Mrs. Luer's question, it's curious that term restricted zones, but please give me one more definition of restricted zones.
Yeah, it's where the residential uses permitted in the zone would restrict the residential use to either single family dwelling or duplex.
Okay.
Yeah, so with the amendments here, we're looking at expanding, being more permissive to allow up to 4 units where they're connected to public sewer and water, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for now.
Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I don't share my colleagues' vision here. I am still disgusted with Bill 44 and what it does to our community. I'll probably vote for it, but I'll do it out of protest. I think the number one thing here is the goal of Bill 44. I understand that, decrease housing starts and affordability, but Sooke had been doing that. We've led the way for housing starts. Then all of a sudden we get hit with this draconian Bill 44 with no consultation. They just threw it at us, lumped us in with Oak Bay and all the others. And it just really irritates me. The part I hate most is the lack of public hearings. They've taken away you as citizens' ability to come to a council meeting with staff and council, the developer and yourselves present to discuss what that means to your neighborhood. Now they'll have an open house put on by the developer that staff and ourselves have no official standing at those meetings. So that's how they're going to be handled. And I know from my experience here for the 6-7 years that I've been sitting at this table, is when I have people discussing that, I get a lot from the people in citizens and I get some feedback from staff. I also get educated by the developer. And I felt that system worked fairly well. I understand there's a lot of NIMBYs around, but our job is to sort through that and do the best decision for Sooke. This takes that away from us. It takes it away from you. I would think the citizens should be outraged at this Bill 44 portion of it. The other thing is we talk about democracy. We go through the official community plan. We consult with everybody. Some people don't feel we've consulted enough. So be it. But the thing is, we go to the people. They tell us how they want their community. They tell us what they want in the way of density for some of these areas, and we listen and we do the plan. And now we have the province coming back to us and dictating what they see as the vision of the OCP. That's wrong. That's fundamentally wrong. And it bothers me. Now we hear it, say, well, there's a trickle here, a trickle there. Our infrastructure right now, when it comes to sewer, it's not too bad, but we are going to run out of space eventually. But it's the road system. And yes, the MOTI, what's it called ever now, in transit, they've got a few plans. Thank God they're coming through with something. But we need some major infrastructure work. And we have in the last decade put in so much housing that we're almost getting to a gridlock. So I just wanted to put that on the record. And I would think that the people of this community should be concerned about when the next level of government comes through with these one size fits all and these big projects, without taking into consideration of the individuals and the citizens of that community that they're impacting. So I will vote for this, but I'll vote for it in protest. And I urge everybody, if they're not happy with this, write your MLA. Contact your next levels of government and say you're not happy with this. I mean, we are elected. You don't pay us much, but you do pay us. But we're there to make those decisions. And I think everybody, all my colleagues here, know that. And we try and weigh out the best decision for Sooke. Sometimes you may not like what we say, but we do the best job we can. So I won't go on about this too much longer. I could go on a long time, but I will vote for it out of protest because it's a gun to my head. And if we get this crammed down our throat, which we are, then we'll lose some little ground that we received in the negotiations so far. So I've said my piece. Thank you for putting up with me, and I'm done.
Thank you, members of council, those of you residents that have written and spoken about this today, as well as our staff for your work on this. I know this has been a heavy piece for you to navigate through. This is a challenging one. It's a jagged pill to swallow. We have since learned that should the district not adopt this, we will be ineligible to apply for grants because our zoning bylaw is outdated. So we will lose funding that would otherwise minimize tax increases, because then that leaves you and I and everyone else finding the funds to pay for this. Is there a connection between our healthcare planning being stalled, the Kaltassin work being stalled, improvements to Sooke being stalled? I don't know. I feel there is, but I don't know that. There has been no outreach to council, despite media suggesting that there will be, we'll work together and find a compromise. There's been nothing from the province. So yes, I am severely disappointed in this approach. The letters we had received indicate that we have not proven that the impact of Highway 14, let's see here. Minister had written that you have not demonstrated that immediate infrastructure upgrades to Highway 14 would have a direct impact on mitigating risk to public health, safety, or the environment. We understand the need to enhance transportation infrastructure to reduce congestion. That's why the Ministry of Transportation will make several improvements over the coming years to Highway 14. While these are significant upgrades, their success will largely depend on the District of Sooke completing its crucial work of connecting Throop Road with Phillips Road. So that is the $30 million you and I, everyone else, will need to borrow to make happen to see anything further, should this letter from September the 16th still stand. So it is disappointing. I feel we are pushed in a corner. To fight back would require exhaustive efforts from our staff, legal counsel, which you would all bleed more money in property taxes to fund, while meanwhile the minister has indicated that they will overrule us anyway and allow for this legislation to go on all areas of Sooke. Restricted as I understood it was also some lots that were limited through their land use agreements to a significant number of units. Is that correct? That it would still remain like a neighborhood like Sun River that has a cap number, or is that all open to 4 units now? I thought that was restricted because their land use agreement was tied to a number of units. Can you correct me on
Yeah,
that?
so through the existing covenant, they're limited in density at 715 units, which they've reached that number, or that number has been accounted for.
So they don't apply under this, even though they're circled. The map
Yeah.
shows that circled.
Yeah, they're a restricted zone. I should say also that accessory units are not
Mhm.
counted towards that overall number. So secondary suites and small suites can be constructed up there without breaching 715 residential lots or multifamily units. But say if a dwelling was reconstructed into a duplex, that would be an additional multifamily unit and would reach that 715 unit threshold.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. So that is the restriction where this council and this district still have some control. We would lose that completely with no updates on to any existing infrastructure. It would all just come and be paid for through taxes someday, maybe for you and I and everyone else. So it is in terms of proving, I'm doing my best to remain contained, that there is, that the impact of Highway 14, there were 3 significant accidents in the last 2 months since the start of this year, where some lives have been tragically altered by severe incidents. So I don't know why I would need to prove that adding more traffic on that road would lead to a positive impact when that's already happened and lives have been disrupted forever. I suggest going forward, I feel pushed into this completely. I don't like the fact that we are ineligible to apply for any grant and that we are just stuck. I would just ask that all residents going forward, if you are impacted by parking, congested, crowding, inability to access the swimming pool, daycare programs, or have your child go to the relevant school within your catchment, you have water pressure, you're stuck in traffic, that you kindly write to our MLA, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Transportation, Education, and related ones. We are doing our best to advocate, but we are not being heard. And we can talk about this, Alan, Councillor Beddoes and I, but we're not heard. We are not acknowledged. They have an approach. They want us to come into compliance and we're stuck. We will continue our advocacy work as we always do. I don't even think our letters are read or heard or acknowledged. That's how it feels. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But that is the reality that we're stuck. We could use your help by also diverting, not just writing those letters to us at council, but actually writing them forward to the ministry that is mandating this upon us. And on that, I have nothing further to say. Just thank you, staff, for your work on this. And we'll see what trickles in and what doesn't. And I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed? I'm refusing to vote, which means I'm in favor. Thank you. The next part is that council adopt zoning amendment bylaw number 910, 600-104, 2024. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Bateman. Councillor Bateman, sorry. All those in favor, please. And that's carried. And the last part is that council directs staff to provide written notice to the Minister of Housing that the zoning bylaw amendment required for compliance with small scale multi-unit housing SMMUH requirements have been adopted. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor. And that's carried unanimously. Yes, let's call for a recess of 10 minutes, please. The current time is 2:25 and we can reconvene at 2:35. Thank you. All right, good afternoon and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. It's 2:35, so we are going to continue on with the meeting. And we are at 10.2 zoning amendment bylaw number 911. So this is that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 911 600-105 2024. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 11 is our new business section. 11.1 is a motion for which notice has been given, AVICC and UBCM resolution. That's the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities and the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, for those following the acronyms. And I will turn to Councillor St. Pierre to read out his motion. Go ahead.
Whereas the Local Government Act, Section 644(2)A specifies that a utility company, defined as an electric light, electric power, telephone, water, gas, or closed-circuit television company, is to be taxed annually by municipalities, not including regional districts or First Nations, at the rate of 1% of its revenue from subscribers. And whereas the legislation does not account for internet and cellular revenues flowing to telecom companies, therefore be it resolved that this outdated section of the Local Government Act be updated to better reflect contemporary consumer choices and reverse the trend of declining municipal revenues from the 1% in lieu of utilities tax.
Okay, that's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bateman. Go ahead and speak to your motion, Councillor St. Pierre.
So this has been brought to our attention, or brought to all of our attentions by staff some time ago. The revenues from the 1% has been dropping essentially as people no longer primarily use landlines. This means that as we have to increase our taxes, our revenues from what was previously a much more substantial source has been plummeting. Meanwhile, telecom companies are making good money on cell phones, and that's what's replaced it. But there's nothing in the Local Government Act to allow us to access any of those revenues. So this is basically a request from the province to look at this extraordinarily outdated piece of legislation and please bring it into the 21st century, because that's where we are now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so all of the above. Thank you, Councillor St. Pierre. And also with full credit to our Deputy Director of Finance, Ben Curry, who since I think it was 2021, perhaps at budget time, he has been raising this issue. And I'm glad it's now reached this stage. One of the key points here is AVIC does insist on a backgrounder. And I believe Mr. Curry's prepared to help Councillor St. Pierre prepare such a thing. And that would be for a late resolution, I guess, on deadline for that is April 9th.
Okay, anything from Councillor Beddoes?
No, I think very well put. Thank you, Councillor St. Pierre and staff for putting that together. It's been a thorn in our side. So once again, we need other levels of government to step up, and there's a lot to do in our communities, and we just can't do it with residential tax dollars. So thanks for that effort.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll just share to members of the public, we are looking at ways to continually find more revenue sources. Those of you that have a landline might know a levy on the landline bill that is also subject to tax. I looked at mine recently. I think it's 65 cents per monthly bill plus GST and PST on it. But as you may know, and obviously landline use is declining, and with mobile telephones replacing that, of which no revenue flows to municipalities. So meanwhile, we are hit with more and more costs, and it is timely to have this implemented. I understand other provinces already have this in effect. I'm just looking at the UBCM database. This has been brought forward before. It's been endorsed by the membership with no implementation by the province. This goes back as early as 2009 is when I see it here. it may go back further, but should this come forward, all of that background we'll see put together on how far back it actually goes. Because in this case, but UBCM has been around for over 100 years, so how long, but I'm certainly the uptick in mobile use has become more obvious in the last couple of decades, I would say. So I'm in full support of this. For those of you attending EVICC and UBCM, I would just look in particular with UBCM for the opportunity to speak, to be available as the sponsor to speak to it, to talk around other delegates of getting their support. And potentially, if it's in alignment with existing at UBCM, given the number, it may just fall into a block of endorsed. But it also then allows us to advocate beyond that as to why it needs to happen. So I'll leave it at that and call the question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your work, Councillor St. Pierre. The second one here is 11.2. Motion for which notice has been given. AVICC, the same Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities and the Union of BC Municipalities Resolution Funding for 911 Service. Councillor St. Pierre has provided notice, so I'll turn to Councillor St. Pierre to read it out.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Whereas the legislation does not account for internet and cellular revenues flowing to telecommunication companies or provide funding for the 911 services available primarily through cell phones, therefore be it resolved that the cost of 911 services be shifted to those benefiting from these services.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Go ahead to speak to it, Councillor St. Pierre.
So this is essentially in response to what seems to be a huge tax hit for us and also an unsustainable revenue model for the e-com. We're looking at hundreds of thousands. I think it was, I think the number is around 400, 350. Essentially a 3.5% tax hike or so is what we're having to pass on to our residents this year because the funding model doesn't actually do what other provinces have, which is basically levy the cell phone use. That's actually what should be happening. I understand there are challenges, but given that other provinces have looked at those challenges and faced those challenges and overcome those challenges, I think it's time for our province to do the same. If you're using a 911 call these days, chances are you're using a cell phone. It is actually a service on a cell phone. It's not something that landlines and residential taxpayers should be having to pay for. And that is exactly what I will say at UBCM. So hopefully we can convince the province to look at this more carefully and put the costs where they should be.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, certainly. Again, Councillor St. Pierre, thanks for bringing that forward. Just for everybody, we have one way to get money to run this community, and that's through taxes. We don't have a lot of other avenues. The province has many, many streams to bring in money, and one is the ability to put this onto cell phones. You think that we're paying for the 911 services when you don't know where that cell phone is going to be outside our jurisdiction, but we're still paying for it. So yes, I back that motion, and hopefully we'll get somewhere with it. Getting a little tired of the province downloading to us, so and you. Thanks.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so first of all, I just had a quick question regarding, okay, so the cost of 911 services be shifted to those benefiting from these services. So does that mean if I call 911 as a citizen, a tariff, I would need to pay a surcharge of some kind?
The way that I read it would be your mobility bill might have a 65 cent per month charge on it plus taxes similar to a landline currently has. I'm seeing agreement from the sponsor, yeah. In the mic.
Again, a backgrounder will be needed. And of course, the 10 South Island mayors, Lady Smith, Sooke, Machosen have recently brought forward a very strong campaign on this subject about the downloading. So perhaps that it might be possible to round up those 10 and get a consensus. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I am in support of this. And for members of the public that are here today and maybe were not present at a budget conversation, we are faced with a prorated bill this year of roughly 3% in taxes to cover off the 911 call portion that was previously absorbed by the province. It's a partial year, and that's why it goes to the $400,000 in future years to pay for, but only the 10 South Island municipalities, not the North, not the Central, not anywhere else in BC. This matter came to our attention 4 or 5 years ago, but the cost impact was unknown. So it took some time for us to be made aware of what that actual cost would be. And that's why there has been, you may have seen some media around the mayor's gathered. I wasn't present that day as my son was very sick, so I was at home and was unable to join the others on the steps of the legislature. However, I do support the work they were doing and have written letters about this since the matter came before us several years ago now. So it is looking, rather than just saying no, accept the download, here's an alternative. Can you please consider putting this as a levy onto a cell phone bill to help offset that? Seems reasonable. Other provinces are doing it. Councillor St. Pierre.
Just two further comments, or one further comment, and that's that we know that the deadline for AVICC has passed, but we are going to make this resolution available to them regardless, and they can do with that as they will. We have the option at that point of taking it to the floor, and that can be considered.
Yep.
So aware of the late resolution, but because ECOM has been basically transferring it, I think that it could be looked on with favor by the ICC because it is something that's come out and we couldn't necessarily get the motion out in time or the resolution to them in time. So we'll see how that goes. But you had a comment and it's well taken, and I had a little bit of an answer to that.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Oops, sorry, go ahead. Motion arising.
As Councillor Bateman suggested, we should probably
Okay,
see.
what is the
The
motion?
motion would be to circulate this motion to the other affected municipalities in order to have a joint resolution. I haven't crafted it, so.
Okay, so something like that, council directs staff to notify the other 9 impacted local governments of this resolution from District of Sooke Council that will be moving to the ABICC and UBCM.
Yeah, in hopes of a joint resolution. I don't know
Okay.
if that's necessary or not, but.
I think we can draft more of that in the letter. It's just to get the staff
Perfect.
direction.
Thank you.
Let's just wait till it's on the screen and then we can have a seconder. That this resolution be circulated to affecting municipalities for their joint advocacy, joint support. Advocacy and support, joint advocacy and support at AVICC and UBCM. I would say probably at the AVICC and the UBCM conventions, AGMs or conventions. Okay, so that's good. Councillor St. Pierre moved, seconded, please, by Councillor Bateman, and to speak further, Councillor St. Pierre. Okay, Councillor Bateman.
I just think in that letter, it should be noted that Councillor St. Pierre is the point person for this, and that would probably be the best way to keep this on track.
Okay, that sounds good. We can work that out in the letter. Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you for your work, Councillor St. Pierre, and for staff for the support. Okay, moving on to section 12 is correspondence. 12.1, Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee, letter of support for the Mobile Youth Services team requested by Councillor Bateman. So the resolution is that the Mayor, Wright, Premier Eby, and other recommended recipients cited in the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee letter dated January 20th, 25th in support of expanded staffing and stable long-term funding for the Mobile Youth Services team. That's your motion, and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, as the communications chair with the committee, I wrote this letter for Chair Marie-Therese Little's signature. And it's just the latest part of a long-term campaign to get exactly that for the Mobile Youth Services Team, which works across Greater Victoria and works with some 250 case files of vulnerable youth who are in real critical points in their young lives. And the good news, following on from this letter, which was dated January 20th, but we made the motion back in November, is that funding has in fact been received from the federal government to keep the program Mia Golden and the program funded through a couple of federal programs for the next 2.5 years. So that's great news. However, the province itself has withdrawn its funding for MIST, and it's hoped that it can step up and add its share. So yeah, through this letter, we'll be able to make some of these points on behalf of Sooke. I know it's just another letter, and those perhaps are not read, but interestingly, they pile up and they become a really useful PDF file that can remind people, as Mr. Curry did in 2021, that something needs to be done. So I think it's useful to add to, yeah, et cetera.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I absolutely believe in the type of work that MIST is doing, which is basically a stitch in time. These are people that need help right here, right now. By actually providing the help first, I mean, obviously there's a humanitarian piece where you're saving lives and allowing people to have a decent life, but also it means that we're not actually allowing people to have their lives wasted on them. And not being able to, for example, pay taxes or own a house or basically support government. It may sound very mercenary, but we really need to spend money here because otherwise we all lose. It's just wrong in every way, shape, and form to not do so. And I hope the province can be convinced of it.
Thank you again, both of you, for your advocacy work. And while I did make that comment that the letter seemingly is unread, I completely support sending the letters because it's what we can do. And at some point, perhaps maybe something will be actioned, because I go think of one of my first advocacy meetings where the minister at the time said, well, I don't have anything from your community. So what is the problem with Highway 14? This is over a decade ago. So then I started writing every time there was an impact on the road. And I have a large file, same with healthcare. Like, at least it provides us with something that we are hearing and doing something. And here's the letters that we have sent. To this particular one, I am in support of this because there has been incredible work, as you both have indicated. I'm also in receipt of an email from a 13-year-old whose best friend was 15 and overdosed with fentanyl-related drugs here in our community. It's 13 and 15 years old. The letter says, I'm Phoenix, I'm 13 years old, and in Sooke, I've noticed a large amount of hard drug use and people getting laced, and I know you can't stop it, but treatment facilities and places where you can test your drugs would be a great thing to put in Sooke so that people can be safe when they're there using and get the help they need. My best friend is 15 years old, overdosed because she was laced with fentanyl. I think putting treatment centers in places where you can test your drugs would be a good idea to make this town safe. It's from a 13-year-old. Okay, so thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Next up is 12.2 BC Epilepsy request for illumination of municipal hall and purple lights. We'll just put forward a motion to receive the request. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre. Well, I guess I'm moving it. So seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. This request has been acknowledged in the earlier discussion. So at this point, we can just receive the letter. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. The next up is 12.3, the South Island Prosperity Partnership newsletter. The item was pulled for the motion that might read that council directs staff to register interested councillors in attending Rising Economy Week. I'm just going to put that out there because we have attended in the past. We are members of SIP. The registration is filling up. So you are registered. Okay, so I wasn't sure You're registered. You're done, you're going. Okay. There is a wait list now, from what I understand. Is there another counselor interested in attending? March 4th to 6th?
Is Councillor Pearson your alternate from SIP? Oh, okay.
I don't know. Yes, maybe. Let's see. I think so. I'm not sure. He's not here to answer, and it's getting, I think he is. But he's not here, so he may or may not even be available. So I'm just gonna reach out to whoever's here. Counselor Beddoes, you're away. Counselors, okay. So at this point, you're already registered, so I think the motion is that council receive and file. Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor St. Pierre, all in favor. It's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you, and report back, please. 12.4, Sooke Shelter Society, coldest night of the year, Sooke 2025.
Well, I just pulled this as a reminder that coldest night of the year, I think it's the 7th annual here in Sooke, is this coming Saturday, as the mayor said.
We just need a motion first, maybe a
Oh,
motion to
Yeah, I'll
receive.
move to receive.
Okay, and seconded by Counselor St. Pierre. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so it's this Saturday, again at Evergreen Mall kiosk. The meetup starts at 4 o'clock. Your opening remarks are scheduled for 4:45. And the walk begins at 5. So Sooke is chasing last year's record $27,000 that was raised, with all money going to the Sooke shelter. And so far we're just short of 12,500, or about 45% of the goal. So, but as Sooke comes through in the last week, right, just as we show up right at showtime, no earlier, but okay. This is important stuff, because this is an initiative that arose from Melanie Cunningham at the Shelter Society, and this is their way of saying we're doing all we can to augment the grants we're getting from the province with hard grassroots work of this kind.
Thank you, Counselor Bateman. Counselor St. Pierre?
I understand from speaking to staff that we have a staff team with parks, and I would love for that information to get out to all of council and to anyone else.
Did we verify that?
Sorry, I did check that email and she mentioned this is the year she can't do with the team. So I don't believe we have a unless somebody stepped up. I saw she sent us email to staff and council, but I personally don't know if anyone followed up with her. To form a Sooke team, not to say people wouldn't participate.
If by any chance someone steps up as a team lead, please get the information out there so we can sponsor or walk with them. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Or you could form the team.
I did, but I won't be there.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The other was a Minister of Transportation and Transit appointment as minister, a letter pulled from Counselor Pearson, who is not here today. So motion to receive and file, moved by Counselor St. Pierre, seconded by Counselor Beddoes, all in favor. And that's carried unanimously. There were no items under 13 removed from the consent, so 14 is council verbal reports. Counselor St. Pierre.
So I attended my first meeting of SIP this last week. I found it extremely informative. The information that we get in presentations is nothing like actually being there and getting to ask questions. So as it happens, my understanding of what they do has now shifted. I understand that they're actually meant to be a convener and facilitator of all the various partners for regional economic development that then supports Sooke. Just because we don't see a new manufacturing plant or something else very specifically creating jobs in Sooke is not actually what SIP is meant to be doing. That might happen. But that would be, something else. They're actually helping, for example, when COVID was along, to bring everyone together to come up with a strategy at that point in time, economically speaking, and bring all the players together so we don't actually have redundancy happening and we've got quick response. So I did find that they had a focus on the language of cities, and that made me feel like, wait a minute, are you talking about us or not? And hopefully they will be looking at that because they are. Now, what I also found very interesting is that Coast is the blue economy that you see in the newsletter. extraordinarily interesting organization, has a number of tech initiatives that are gathered together. They provide funding, assistance with marketing, assistance finding workers, and all the different supports. I am dreaming huge, but I believe that based on what's happening here and what I think could be happening, and because we have a lot of institutes of higher education, there might be the possibility of a Silicon Valley of ocean research happening in the South Island with this sort of thing happening. And so I'm fascinated, interested, would love to see this go further as far as it can go, because that will produce high quality jobs throughout the South Island and opportunities everywhere. What else? They are also responsible not just for the inception of COAST, but also for the IPC, or the Indigenous Prosperity Center. And they're very busy working, for example, with our ECDev officer, Gail Scott, on the Juan de Fuca Corridor project, which would involve actually hooking up all the way from Schwartz Bay to the West Coast Trail with a cycling, essentially highway, potentially with access to tourism activities all the way along, which would actually impact Sooke greatly with the potholes, with all the wonderful things we could do in Sooke, with our trails and so on and so forth. They also have a regional youth conference for ECDev happening in April 25th and 26th, including Métis. They have a procurement project focusing on assisting their smaller businesses, which is to say, like if you're looking for gifts, corporate gifts and so on and so forth, they can actually hook you up with some of their Indigenous products for that sort of thing. And they have a new IPC website, which will be happening, their website, through, I think, is a group called Animiki. Also, the Rising Economy Conference of March 4th and 6th is sold out. So now, I should have mentioned that first, but whatever.
Thank you, Councillor St. Pierre. Councillor Beddoes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'll let you speak about the opening of the Little River. So, but we were there, all of us, and got calluses on my fingers from the shovel. But the other thing is I attended the Sooke Building Association last Wednesday, and fortunately, Mr. Marshall was there, and Mr. Marshall took most of the calls, gave a very good discussion, and my impression is he's very well received by the Sooke Building Association. Me, maybe not so much, I don't know, but it was a good meeting, and Mr. Marshall did a very good job. That's it.
Thank you. Anything on Sea Park to share? The strategic planning, any highlights?
That's coming in March. So
To the public? Or-
no, where we have our workshops first.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, we haven't had. Did we have a meeting since our last meeting? I guess we did. Yeah, there's a lot of good data. Sorry, Your Worship, but that's true. We had quite a discussion down there. We had a presentation by our consultant. And it was mind blowing how they received their data. One I found out was very interesting is they're able through, I don't know what technology, but tell you how many cell phones were there and where they're from. So, I mean, big brother, eh? It sort of gave me a bit of a wake up call. But there was a wonderful, wonderful information there. It was, I'm looking forward to the workshop that we'll be attending our mayor. And I'm pretty excited. Again, it's figuring out what we need. Now it's our job to find out where we get the money to do some of these things. But it was some very, very good data and very well presented. I was very impressed with the consultant that they finally ended up with. And I'm looking forward to the next one, which is March. It's when I get back from Mexico, 14th. Does that sound about right? And we will do a more in-depth workshop, and then we can share more with the public. So it's I'm looking forward to it. So it's good work, and some really good people involved in it. Again, every time I deal with Sea Park down, and the staff and everybody, they do a bang up job down there. It's amazing what they produce. So yeah, good meeting. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Councillor Bateman?
Okay, so we canceled our verbal report section at the last meeting because it was so late. So I have notes on everything back to January. So I think I'll skip some of that. But I do want to note that the Sooke Homelessness Coalition met in early January. This was the first meeting chaired by the new co-chair, Lori Watt, who is the new president of the Sooke Shelter Society. And she is my first impression is a very strong-willed, clear, process-oriented individual who will do great things for the coalition over the long term. We all met, with the exception of Councillor McMath, met with our new MLA of the legislature back on January 15th. Yeah, we're going back here, way, way back. West Shore Arts and Culture Intermunicipal Committee. It was my first meeting with them back in January, and they're the group that's trying to identify land and fund a community arts center on the West Shore that would serve Sooke arts groups and artists. We had a CRD Arts Commission meeting. There was the Sooke Region Chamber of Commerce Annual General Meeting. There was the Coffee with a Cop at Cafe Vizino, which was a really good session. It was the second time we did it in the morning, and I'm wondering whether the next round, this an annual event, might be done in the early evening over drinks. I don't know how that would play out at the brewery. I don't know. Anyway. There was also an age-friendly committee meeting where we discussed an upcoming visit by the BC Seniors Advocate, who all of us on council met with back at the Union of BC Municipalities Convention in the fall. And the focus of this visit will be on the gathering place, the work of Searchin, the Sooke Region Communities Health Network, since we're to give no acronyms allowed anymore, and especially Air Manor. So at this age-friendly meeting, Kerry Williams, its executive director, was there, and he is keen to see a revival of the now 13-year-old intention to build a new 4-story, 56-bed complex care wing. Now, Sooke issued a development permit for that, and the Ministry of Health got diverted somehow. But the advocate, as he told us in our meeting, is keen to do what he can for local communities. And back at UBCM, he stated the national average is 29 long-term care beds per 1,000 citizens age 65 plus. So that's the national average. Sooke is home to 3,000 of us over the age of 65. It currently operates 31 beds. So ipso facto, we merit in Sooke 3 times the number of complex care beds. So that's something to advocate for. And finally, CRD board meeting on February 12th, and I got to move, and Al Wickham seconded the CPark strategic plan borrowing 3.1 million to finance the new skate park and the electric heating, cooling, recovery system at the pool and arena. And this will go through an alternative approval process that will launch in April, May. So. And also at that meeting, two more AAPs came to a conclusion. There were just 29 petitions against each of these proposals, one for the CRD Foodlands Access Service, which will be running a pilot project for new farmers at Bear Hill Regional Park. And the service itself will also have a number of other functions, including a grant program that supports successful land matches made through the BC Land Matching Program. So that means a would-be Sooke farmer can get a grant to work with this land matching program and ideally get some land. Because as you well know, Councillor St. Pierre, it's extremely expensive and and farmers are aging out and more new young ones are required. So that's what that service will do. There's also a new biodiversity service that will focus on regional invasive species, strategic partnerships with First Nations and municipalities, data collection, mapping, and other environmental initiatives. Okay. Then, oh yeah, and there was the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation tabletop training exercise. Now that was really interesting because they had an exercise tabletop where there was a major spill of bitumen, diluted bitumen, near Trial Island off Oak Bay. And the weather was mild. It was not a factor. A tanker, a single hulled tanker was ruptured by collision with another boat. Major oil slick emerged. It was driven by tides and wind in a pattern that there was modeling. It showed the slick moving out into past Salt Spring and then back again, and then coating the shoreline. And there are about 50 or 60 professionals from various agencies assembled in this command center. It's like an emergency operations center is formed, and it involves Coast Guard takes the lead. It was really fascinating to see. Now, as much as Sooke and this whole South Island were really against the pipeline, Kinder Morgan expansion, and yet it is here, and there's no avoiding it. There's 400 tankers now annually up and down the coast, and it looks like the professionals are ready in the event of what will undoubtedly be a hugely unpredictable event that where the weather is not mild, but they're training up, and that's good news, at least. The end.
Thank you, counselors, for all of the work that you've been doing. I was away. I went on a Canadian adventure solo trip. I flew one way to Winnipeg for a few days. I find cold weather incredibly rejuvenating, so it was a good fit for me. I then boarded the Via Rail train and took the passenger train and took it back to Vancouver in a sleeper cabin for one, not car. And I loved it. I recommend if you want to see little Canadiana and have a nice relaxing trip, Via Rail is the way to go. The Via Rail is a Crown corporation, but the rails are privately held by CN or CP. So when you hear about delays, it's because this train has to wait for freight that has the right of way. So fascinating to see that interplay and how that works. Interesting to see in chatting with a friend afterwards who was asking me about cellular coverage. And I said, well, it was very strong going through Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta, and then it disappeared. And he had asked or indicated that perhaps this was due to agreements with Starlink and the like. And I said, well, no, it's quite flat there. So signals have no problem, because then you hit mountains and valleys and the signals disappear, and it's time. It was nice just to unplug from devices and just look out the window and see the Canadian landscape. Beautiful sky, very affordable. Meals are included. If you don't mind sharing a table with other folks or waiting for the shower car or the like, small cabin, but cozy. Had everything you needed. So I recommend that. Don't really want to drive across Canada in winter weather, but the rail is safe and you could just enjoy it safely, see some snow, the lights, the stars and the like. It was quite beautiful. I also saw the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It runs alongside the rail. So interesting conversations about that scene. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at, but then you can see the flags, the odd service vehicle, and what looked like a connection where if there's a leak, the line shuts down. So another more informed person was explaining to me how this all worked and where it ran. And I could see it for the most part, until I think we hit Kamloops, and then I'm not sure. I think I was sleeping at that time. But anyway, it was an amazing trip, very safe and very comfortable. So thank you, Councillor Bateman and others, just for covering while I was away. Councillor Bateman referenced the alternative approval process for Sea Park. This is to replace the skate park. The skate park is not repairable anymore. It's dangerous. There's rebarb sticking out, and it needs to be completely leveled and rebuilt in its space. Tremendous engagement with young people and other users of the parks to have it modernized and to meet the new demands and how the world of skateboarding has evolved and changed. It's unfortunate with the timing that the users don't have another local area here in Sooke. It's just we have to get on with it in this way. The borrowing for the pool and arena will put the facility at net zero by 2030, using the heat from the pool, or maybe it's one or the other. Basically, to do the chillers for the ice and how the two systems will work together and offset each other. So it's quite exciting. In terms of the work that Councillor Beddoes is leading on the strategic planning, is to get a solid strategic plan for that facility for the next 10 years. If it's not in the plan, it doesn't happen. What Councillor Bettles alluded to is that carrying these devices around, they can have intel on not only the traffic, but also the demographics. So the amount of youth accessing versus adults, and just to see how many young people rely on this facility and the growing numbers. They'd also shared some statistics in communities of our size, population, and so forth. Most already have 2 sheets of ice that are already in full use. We only have 1. And roughly a pool like Commonwealth for 1 every 100,000. We have 1 serving the whole South Island. It's Commonwealth is the only pool that allows for competitive swimming, and as well as the dive tower and the facility for advancing swimmers. I don't know that we would get to that point. Our population wouldn't support that, but it is just interesting and insightful work and speaks to the strength of those involved. For myself, really grateful to staff and councils for supporting the Little River as well as the Stickleback Trail, which you see a hub of here in John Phillips Memorial. The walking school bus program has strong uptick from students attending Poirier in particular. This is a point now where parents can drop their children off. They would join the walking school bus and walk to and from school. So it might help offset the congestion that is currently in that area, or to save parents on the transportation fee to get there. I think back to Little River, the first work that our staff did was put some trails in John Phillips Memorial Park, and Nikki Logan's with Sooke Family Resource Center did a fun run. It was like a family event that there was running here in the park. And since then, we see how the trail has advanced. And so it was an exciting milestone. Look forward to it actually opening and being completed, but I know our staff are on top of that because we are observing the nesting window for the birds, all the archaeological consideration environment, as well as the salmon impact. So there's a lot of work that has to happen around those particular windows. I have done a few media calls, both Check TV and CFAX, relating to ambulance calls and how our fire department is ensuring that there are no gaps in service. So thank you to our crews for stepping up here. They're trained to fight fires, but we also need to attend to the medical calls. So we are paying for a full service, but the BC ambulance has gaps, and we want to ensure that residents are not alone and left without care. So it is on us to continue on this way. I was also at the Sooke Chamber Annual General Meeting, a new board members joining, and I was invited to attend the Lori Dance earlier this year, held by the Victoria Punjabi Community Association. It was a celebration of many different things, but I was there to represent Sooke, which was very exciting. You mentioned a bit about elder care, and it's a growing concern. I'm now caring for the 4th in my home. I've had my mother passed away before, but I did tremendous amount of support for her. My father, until he was palliative, passed in our home, as well as my mother-in-law last year. And I currently have my father-in-law with us. There is a large number of people living in our hospital system right now with no alternative to go to. And we wonder why folks are in the hallway. It's because we have folks living in the hospital. Over $2,000 a day to provide that level of care, and it's not great. Boredom, isolation, loneliness, how that impacts people's mental health who otherwise would do well, surrounded either and supported by family or in a care that is established for that, would do a lot for the elders who have served our community so well. It makes me cry when I've gone into the hospital, and usually there's doors because people are trying to get out and they are stuck there. So I feel for the medical staff that is doing their very best, as well as those poor souls that are stuck there with no alternative to go to. It's really, really sad. So I don't want to leave this on a depressing note. So I'll just share, I was also in Sooke Elementary for Literacy Week and met with 4 classes from kindergarten to grade 4. It's during Literacy Week, so it's always an option for me to bring a book. I usually select one of their new library books that they're bringing in to read and share with the children. And there's always time to hear back from them. So even the kindergartens are very aware of what they're seeing. They're a little bit shy at first. But when you get up to grade 4, there's some demands there. They want to know why their basketball court is outside. They can't play well on it because the asphalt is so broken and cracked. Access to services, and curious about how decisions are made and who's responsible for what. So they're a tough audience. And I'm always very happy to be there with them. They do write to me. I make an attempt to write back to every letter, but some of the small changes you've seen, like bear resistant garbage cans, bear resistant cans at places like Ella Beach, or at bus stops, broom bashing, a lot of the work they're doing, safe sidewalks, safe trail systems, the desire to walk to school, to be independent. These are all led by children as well as their concern for their natural environment. So I always like to show them how their input is being reflected in the work that we're doing and that they matter and their voices matter and that they're heard. So, and they were demanding to know when we were doing that rainbow crosswalk because they'd like to see some action from us. So we'll see how that goes. So on that note, I will close off by calling for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The time is 3:21. So 2 hours and 20 minutes. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to those with us.